deep pride and soberness, I will pardon over 175,000 convictions.
All right, the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, as you heard, he's pardoning more than 175,000 low-level marijuana convictions. This after the state voted to legalize recreational use in 2022. Governor says the sweeping executive order will help those with convictions facing barriers in finding housing, jobs, education, especially, he says, people of color, where they were disproportionately arrested for marijuana-related offenses. Let's bring Caylin Young in on this. He's a Democrat serving in the House of Delegates in the state of Maryland and rejoins the show. Thank you, sir, for coming on again. Initial thoughts on this. We've seen this in other places, which we'll talk about in a moment, but this was a big number, 175,000 pardons. What do you make of what the governor's doing?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me here again. And I just got to say, I'm so proud of Governor Moore today and leading Maryland and leading the nation and making this monumentous occasion and pardoning so many convictions for our Marylanders. As a representative of Baltimore City, 25% of these pardons are going to impact Baltimoreans. That's tremendous. And this is about public safety also. When you open up opportunity for folks to be able to get jobs, get housing, removing these barriers, that has a positive impact on families. That has a positive impact on economics. And so we're grateful that our governor is providing that avenue for these Marylanders and moving Maryland forward, especially as it is in alignment with what our voters said in 2022.
Now, he talked about, as I mentioned, the issue of race and the disproportionate number of arrests, he says, for people of color, which I want to play a clip of. And here's the governor once again.
Legalization does not erase the fact that nearly half of all drug arrests in Maryland during the early 2000s were for cannabis. It doesn't erase the fact that black Marylanders were 3 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis than white Marylanders before legalization. It doesn't erase the fact that having a conviction on your record means a harder time with everything, from housing to employment, to education.
Now, that's why he says, and we can bring up the numbers on legalization on the tablet that I have in front of me, that it's more than just this. So you have a number here, 57% say are now in favor of marijuana being legal for medical and recreational uses. Those numbers have been going steadily in that direction around the country for some time. But what about the governor's point there, that it's more than that? That's why he feels like he needed the pardons.
Well, it is more than that. And let me just start by saying that in Maryland, it was 2/3 of Marylanders that voted yes to legalizing marijuana and cannabis. And so this is in alignment with that. And then when we think about Maryland's history, Maryland right now is the state that incarcerates more black and brown men than any other state in the country, even though we have the only black governor in the country. And so what you see is that same governor trying to remedy some of those harms. We have black Marylanders are 30% of our population, but over 70% of our prison population, many of those convictions coming from cannabis. And so, again, this is a progressive move, and we're just grateful that we're able to lead the nation and show that we can do this and maintain public safety at the same time.
But it is happening in other places. We have a map again on the tablet. We'll show it. And the states that are colored in green on this map is where they're expunging convictions. The yellow shaded states, Maryland included, is where they are pardoning some of the convictions. So it's happening. It's growing. It's happening in more places. I guess the only argument that I've heard against it is similar to what, when you talk about legalization, somebody comes out all the time and says, well, maybe they're going too far with this. They bring up the gateway drug argument and all this kind of thing, and then maybe we're just getting a little too liberal with these policies. How do you respond when people say that?
In Maryland, since legalization, we've actually seen public safety increase. We've seen crime go down, indeed. And so we don't necessarily see those ramifications. At the same time, we want to maintain cognizance of, what negative things may arise in an individual case. And so we have programs to support individuals as it pertains to that. When we did legalize cannabis here in Maryland, one of the things that we did is make sure that we did it in a very equitable way. 35% of tax revenue from cannabis goes to the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund. That fund goes directly to communities that were impacted by the war on drugs. And thus, again, we are leveraging cannabis and the revenues therein to make sure that we are remedying harm and that we are moving people in a positive way and moving whole communities in a positive way.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.